In today's video, I'm going to show you step by step how you can make your own off-grid maple syrup should society collapse. This skill is easy to learn and will help to feed you and your family when the dark times come. Right after the channel intro. Welcome to this community. I'm an avid prepper and oath keeper, and I'm certified to teach firearms and the use of deadly force. If you want to learn actual prepping skills and how to protect yourself legally, then please subscribe and also click the bell icon so you won't miss whenever a video is released. In just a minute, I'll be showing exact step-by-step directions, but first, maple syrup is so easy to make. You make it by collecting the sap from a maple tree and then boiling it down into the syrup. You don't add anything to it, no added sugar, no food coloring, nothing at all. Now I know that some of you may be tired about hearing me talking about maple sugaring, but when the grid goes down, when the trucks stop delivering food to the stores, and when you're growing tired of the same old rice and beans, then you can tap a maple tree for its sap, and this off-grid maple syrup is better than anything store-bought and will definitely act as a morale booster, which will be badly needed after SHTF. And besides being a delicacy during SHTF, it can also be used in the place of sugar and could also be bartered with trusted people. And maple syrup isn't actually that bad for you, obviously within moderation. It contains minerals like zinc, calcium, potassium, iron, magnesium, and also antioxidants. And if you don't have maple trees in your area, you can also make syrup out of the sap from walnut trees and birch trees and sycamore trees. And if you don't know how to tell trees apart, walnut trees drop these green round things, which are actually their walnuts, onto the ground. And birch trees, while being in different colors, have the paper-like bark. And maple trees drop their helicopter seeds in the spring. And sycamore trees have the bark that falls off of them, making them look like they are sick. First, you'll need a tapping kit. And these cheap plastic taps have worked great for me for several years now. I got them off of Amazon, and I'll put a link to them down in the description box below. And they have worked better for me even over the more expensive stainless steel sets that can cost around $100. And my kit calls for a 5/16 drill bit, so that's what I'll be using. And you'll need also either an electric or a manual drill. And then I use a food grade 5-gallon bucket that will collect the sap. And then I use a lid for that bucket that will help keep leaves and any other debris from falling into the sap. And then in that lid, I will drill some holes that I will feed the tap lines down into it. And then lastly, you'll need a hammer to tap the taps into the tree. You'll want to tap your trees in late winter or early spring, when it's in the 20-degree Fahrenheit range at night and then in the 30s or 40s during the day. That's when you want to tap your trees. This year I tapped my tree in February, and while I did capture it on video, my toddler son helped me, and he's not old enough to know to stay out of the way of the camera. So I'm having to splice some old footage into the newer footage so that you can see what's happening. But this can only be done in the early springtime. You just won't get good sap during the warmer months. In fact, even if you are able to get enough sap during the warmer months, it will taste bitter. And once real buds appear on the tree limbs, then it's time to pull your taps for the season. Now you're going to want to pick the south to southeast side of the tree because the sun hitting and warming that tree is what gets the sap moving. And then you'll want to drill about 1 inch deep into your tree at a slightly upwards angle so that gravity helps the sap to run down into your tap lines. And in a large and mature tree like this, you should be able to tap the tree at least 3 times, and in smaller trees you'll want to tap it less. And you won't have to worry about the drill holes at the end of the season. They'll heal on their own, and this picture should be showing some old holes that have healed naturally. Now you want to insert the taps, which are also called spiles, but insert the taps into the holes and tap them in. You don't actually pound them in, you just tap them in. But once you tap your tree, you should start to see the sap to start slowly dripping. And hopefully my camera is able to show the sap slowly starting to drip. Now you just put your bucket into place and then put the lid on it and then feed the tap lines down through the lid. Now you just need to watch it daily, and every time I get 2 buckets full of sap, then that's when I'll boil it down into syrup. Now it takes a lot of sap to make the syrup. It actually boils down 40 parts to 1. That means if you start off with 40 gallons of sap, then once it boils down to actual syrup, then you'll end up with just 1 gallon of syrup. Now to truly keep this off grid, I boiled it down over an open fire pit. So I have more sap than what my big pot can hold. So I'll fill it up as much as I can to start the boiling down process. And you'll notice that as I'm pouring it that the sap looks like clear water. But as you boil it, the water evaporates away, leaving behind the naturally sweet syrup. And if I had a proper setup like the one pictured here, where the smoke from the fire gets channeled up through the chimney, then it would keep the smoke from reaching the boiling sap. But I don't have a setup like that, therefore the smoke gets into my syrup and ends up leaving a little bit of a smoky flavor in my syrup. So now I just boil it and boil it and boil it, and as it boils, you may notice that some suds or foam will appear at the top. And you can scoop this out as it has a tendency to collect any debris that's in the syrup. So by scooping this foam out, you're helping to get rid of any parts of nature that ends up in your syrup. Now when the first pot boils down enough for me to add more, then I just add the rest of the sap to the pot to finish the boiling down process. And due to the short days of late winter and early spring, I continued to boil late into the night. And then the next day, I restarted the fire pit up again to finish the boiling down process. Now when it gets boiled down quite a bit, it can go from not quite finished to burned really fast. So I transferred the remaining syrup into a smaller pot to finish that boiling down process. And then I just give it a taste test every few minutes until I see that I get the consistency and the taste just right. Oh man, that's really tasting like maple syrup. And then once it's done, I just simply remove it from the fire just to cool just a little bit before bottling it. And now that it's cooled just a bit, now I'm just going to pour it through some cheesecloth just to help filter out any ash or any other debris that might have gotten into it. Now this batch turned out pretty dark in color, and I'm suspecting it's because it was done over an open fire pit. And there's different grades for maple syrup, such as grade A and grade B. But my maple syrup, because I don't use a proper boiling setup, probably wouldn't even make the grading system, but it still tastes better than any of the store-bought stuff that uses high fructose corn syrup. And this again is truly made off-grid and will be a great asset if and when SHTF happens. But in the end, I was able to make a couple of more batches besides what I shot in this video. And this last batch turned out a bit lighter in color than the first batch. But with my extra, I just simply can it in a hot water bath beyond what I can put into 2 old maple syrup bottles. And I do this because while maple syrup is supposed to last for years and years, I have had mold grow on the glass above the syrup line. And wait for it, and listen to the sounds of the canning lids make their pop or ping sound. That is one of the most satisfying sounds someone who cans their food can hear. So now I want to hear from you. What kind of prepper skills have you learned that you think will really be an asset during SHTF? Have you taught yourself any skills that could allow you to barter with trusted people after SHTF? And if so, what are they? And have you ever made your own maple syrup? And if you don't have maple trees in your area, what kind of trees do you have that you could tap? And if you'd like to learn how you can capture a marauder using an arm lock, then check out the video in the card that should be appearing in the upper right hand corner of the screen about now. Anyways folks, if you made it this far, hey, thank you very much for watching, and I pray that you have a good night.